and that the truth was already swirling around in media reports when it first broke anyway. So I think it's pretty well established that the president dictated that memo, and they can't really get around it.
Yeah, and why does that make it such a big deal? For those of maybe who are like, oh, it's just a response, a statement to the New York Times, not like it was to the special counsel or anything else like that. But why is it such a big deal? Is it because of the fact, the collusion implications that helped him cover up the collusion, and maybe there was some more discussion there about what the meeting was about or whatnot? So why is this revelation here so significant?
Well, it's true that it's not illegal to lie to the New York Times, and the president, of course, hasn't been interviewed and been asked about that, and of course, he hasn't lied about it before the FBI. So that would be a crime if he lied. So I don't think there have been any laws broken here, but I think that it ties the president into a larger story of collusion that the rest of his campaign entered into. And very much like the obstruction case, there isn't any one thing you can point to and say that's obstruction of justice. But when taken as a package, it starts to look more incriminating. So, but I think it may be that there are not enough incriminating things that tie the collusion aspect of the case directly to the president. There's just this one thing. But I think that, and we have seen it already. We've already seen charges brought to members of his campaign on various things, and I just don't know if it's going to hit the president directly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean that's probably the whole Trump Tower fiasco is probably the most damning evidence that we know of yet about real desire to collusion, and the fact that again the Trump's associated with that and helped lie about it to whoever is definitely a pretty big deal. Yeah, so one of the lawyers, Natalia Veselnitskaya, there, who is present at this meeting, brought up the Magnitsky Act in the meeting, a 2012 American law punishing Russian human rights violators, as she lobbied extensively to overturn it. She reached out to Trump's team after he was elected to try to lobby on the Russian sanctions. CNN has reported that while the premise of the Trump meeting was for the Russians to deliver damaging information about the Democratic nominee, the statement initially put out in the Trump Jr.'s name said the participants primarily discussed a program about the adoption of Russian children. It omitted the mention of Clinton. And as we know, that statement was dictated by Trump himself, not Trump Jr. After the initial statements came out, news outlets reported that Trump reported that Trump was involved in preparing the statement. So, I mean, overall, it seems like it's something that is a little bit. It's definitely a little bit disturbing, but in the end, probably it won't impact too much. So, but in terms of the general broader Trump Tower meeting, how important is this to the collusion investigation? Is this probably the most damning piece of evidence that we have really yet to show the desire to collude? And what was the effects if we found out like Trump knew about it before or while it was happening?
Well, what we publicly know so far, I would say yes, it's probably the most damaging event to the Trump campaign insofar as implicating them in collusion. But there's a lot that we probably don't know that Mueller does know. In particular, I think there should be a lot of concern about what Roger Stone knew or did. And there's probably, there's things that were involvement with the NRA and large donations that probably got funneled to the NRA from Russians, and there's the Seychelles meeting. There's a lot of different things that I can't think of off the top of my head, but there's so many that potentially Robert Mueller knows a lot more about than we do, and so it's hard to say exactly what state the collusion case is in. But we know that even now, they're still pursuing the collusion case. And in fact, I think the Mueller investigation, pretty much the first few months of it anyway, concentrated more on the obstruction piece of it. And now that that's mostly finished, they're concentrating more on the collusion aspect of it. So, this meeting is important. We really don't know what was said at this meeting, other than what the participants said was said, and none of those people in that meeting are really cooperating with Mueller. So who knows what dirt, if any, was told about Clinton. It's possible that in this meeting, for example, they didn't give them anything except maybe they announced that they had, these stolen emails from the DNC. And then they just left it at that. And it's easy to deny that anything was said because nothing was given. Maybe nothing was sent through an email that said this. So there's no hard evidence that could prove that they talked about these things. But we do know that around this time, the DNC was already hacked. So it's very possible that that's what was disclosed at this meeting. It just hasn't been made public.
That's interesting. So it could be pretty devastating if it was found out around on the road that there was down the road that there was actually some real dirt exchanged here, and even more possibly devastating if Trump knew about it. I think it would also be very interesting to see where they go on the money laundering front. But I mean, every day the collusion case seems to look pretty attractive as well. So we turn our attention now to the Senate Republicans. They are pretty pumped up about the midterms, and they are for good reason. It's been a rough first year confronting friendly fire from President Trump. Senate Republicans are ending the summer before the midterm elections feeling more hopeful about retaining their narrow majority than at any time since the president's election, and for good reason. Trump is enjoying a modest increase in his approval ratings this year, and as important is attacking Democrats rather than citing internecine feuds that could depress Republican turnout. The economy continues to grow, as been demonstrated by Friday's unexpectedly strong jobs report, while unemployment levels have fallen to points unseen since 2000, which is a pretty good time. Republicans are already on the offensive thanks to a Senate map that includes 10 Democratic-held seats in states Mr. Trump won, have seen nearly every electoral variable turn in their direction in recent months. They averted a disaster in the West Virginia primary, successfully recruited their preferred candidates in North Dakota and Florida, and watched a renegade Republican challenger win in one of Mississippi's 2 Senate races. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of this seems to be kind of into Republican stuff, but I think it's going to be very. What do you think about the prospects of a blue wave down the road here?
I still think they're pretty good. It's interesting that the president's popularity rating is notching upward. I think a lot of that is driven by the economy, and a lot of it is also maybe driven by the fact that Americans think that maybe the Trump presidency won't be as horrible as they initially were concerned about it when he was first elected. I really don't know, honestly, but I still think that there are a lot of people with a lot of energy who are resisting this administration and are going to come out in force. What remains to be seen is if an issue develops between now and the midterms that energizes the Republican side. And this is why Democrats in Congress are not talking about impeachment. If they did, it would rile up the right. So,
and the right is always already using
if something happens in the Mueller investigation, for example, that could rile up the right, those things are unpredictable. But I still think a blue wave is coming.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is you mentioned that, but there has been ads out saying the the Democrats are trying to impeach your president. Come support it. We need more Republicans to hold, and that could be probably the most effective strategy that they got going for them right now. And if they get this North Korea summit out of the way, that could be a huge bolster there. But I think it's again, the stakes also here are very very high. Um, in general, for the possibility of maybe that we like to the main point is we need a blue wave just for a variety of reasons in the country to hold Trump accountable, at least in the House of Representatives, to hold Trump accountable to on the Russian investigation and on other key policy issues. I mean, I think it's going to be very important for a blue wave down the road.
I agree, and I do think the House is more gettable by the Democrats, and the Senate is much more of a concern. I mean, it's possible that Democrats could even lose a seat or two in the Senate because there's more competitive races against Democrats than there are against Republicans in the Senate in this midterm. I think really the only Senate seat that Democrats hope to grab is Dean Heller's, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, if we can get one house, or if the Democrats can get one house, then that will certainly help. Although there's a lot of power in the Senate too. I'm worried about all the judicial appointments, all the federal judges that are being sent through the Senate, and those could be blocked if the Democrats control the Senate too. And but at least we have the House.
Yeah, I mean you got to take what you can get and fight for more, pretty much. It sounds like go for as much as possible. I think it's going to be very important to be aggressive. And the thing you mentioned about the state judgeships, I think, is huge, absolutely huge, because it just determines. It's also a key remedy for stopping, with a conservative judge in some places, in many more places around the country. We would have a travel ban. We would have a variety of other things. We'd have a second travel ban. We would have had probably the AHCA, and things would have been a lot worse. It shows you why judgeships are so important and why elections have consequences, and that's why we got to win them. Yeah, and this week, though, here's the good thing for the Republicans is Governor Eric Greitens of Missouri resigned rather than face a felony computer tampering charge, depriving the Democrats of a political weapon they hope to wield in a Senate race there. A felony invasion of privacy charge against Greitens, who was accused of sexual misconduct, was dropped weeks earlier. And the ailing Senator John McCain remains in office, passing a crucial deadline that all but ensures there will only be one Senate seat up for grabs in Arizona, which will be Jeff Flake, which is, good to see that John McCain is hanging in there, but on the other hand, you got to be if you're the Democrats, going to be maybe a little bit disappointed by this development here. Not everyone in the GOP is as bullish, with worries about the president and how he will possibly try and self-sabotage his party. The Democrats' fundraising advantage and the anti-Trump intensity propelling the left, and it will make it difficult to do much more than break even and protect its one-seat majority. So, yeah, how do you see the anti-Trump fervor turning into real policy positions for the Democrats?
That's a good question. I think that's been the one big complaint, one big criticism, not only of Republicans against Democrats, but even within the Democratic Party. A lot of candidates around the country who are running for, say, in their House district, are pretty much ignoring the issues dealing with the president that the electorate don't like, and trying to concentrate on issues. And I think a lot of them are concentrating on things like healthcare, jobs, and perhaps the gun issue, or things like that, bread and butter issues that affect their district.